If you've been scrolling through endless spec sheets, watching YouTube teardowns, and still can't tell whether the Dell Pro 16 is the laptop that will actually let you game after work without blowing a hole in your wallet, you're not alone. I've been there, comparing a handful of 15 and 17-inch machines, trying to guess which one will stay cool during a marathon session of Valorant and still make it through a 3-hour Zoom call. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review I'll walk through the things that matter once you actually plug it in: heat, fan noise, keyboard feel, battery life, display quality, and whether the price feels fair compared with a desktop or a less aggressive laptop. Let's start with the core of any gaming laptop, the processor. Dell fitted the Pro 16 with AMD's Ryzen AI 7350. It's a chip that blends the traditional Zen 3 cores with a built-in AI accelerator, which means you'll get solid single-core performance for games that still rely heavily on one thread, while the AI block can help with things like upscaling or background tasks if you're using the laptop for creative work too. In real-world testing, I found the CPU held its own in titles like Fortnite and League of Legends, keeping frame rate steady above 60 frames per second on medium settings. It's not a monster for ray-traced AAA titles, but for the most popular esports and indie games it's more than enough. Heat is the next big concern. Gaming laptops are notorious for turning into a mini oven after an hour of sustained load, and the Pro 16 is no exception. The chassis is built around a dual-fan cooling solution that kicks in aggressively when the CPU hits the upper 80°C range. In a side-by-side test with a comparable 15-inch Dell G series, the Pro 16 ran about 3 degrees hotter on average, but it also maintained its performance a bit longer before throttling. The downside is the fan noise. On the performance mode the fans become inaudible, where that you'll definitely notice if you're wearing a headset with a mic. In a quiet apartment, the noise level hovered around 45 dBA, which is fine for a typical gaming session but could be distracting during a conference call. If you need a quieter environment, you can drop down to balanced mode, which reduces the fan speed and noise, but you'll see a modest dip in frame rates, roughly 510 frames per second in the same titles. Keyboard feel is something many reviewers gloss over, but it's crucial when you're mashing keys for hours. Dell gave the Pro 16 a backlit, island-style keyboard with a decent 1.5mm travel. The keys register a crisp click that feels a bit like a mechanical switch without the extra bulk. I appreciated the dedicated game macro row on the right side, which you can program for quick ability casts in MOBA games. The backlighting is customizable per zone, so you can set a low-profile blue glow for late-night sessions without blinding anyone else in the room. One minor gripe: the spacebar is a tad shallow, and if you're used to a full-size desktop keyboard it might take a couple of games to adjust. Battery life is often the Achilles heel of gaming laptops, and the Pro 16 is no different. It ships with a 71Wh cell, which Dell advertises as all-day for productivity tasks. In practice, I got about 6 hours of mixed-usage email, a spreadsheet, and a couple of YouTube videos before the charger was needed. As soon as I launched Apex Legends and cranked the performance profile, the battery dropped to 20% in under an hour. So if you plan to game away from an outlet, you'll want to keep the charger handy or look at a power bank that can handle the laptop's 130W draw. For a commuter who mainly works on the go and only plays on the couch, the battery is acceptable, but it's not a game-on-the-train solution. Display quality is where the Pro 16 shines. The 16-inch FHD Plus IPS panel packs a 1920x1200 resolution, giving you a slightly taller aspect ratio that's great for productivity. You can see more lines of code or spreadsheets without scaling. The panel hits 300 nits of brightness and covers around 95% of the sRGB gamut, which makes colors pop in games that support HDR. The IPS technology ensures wide viewing angles, so if you're couch coop with a friend, they'll see the same vivid picture as you. The only practical downside is the lack of a higher refresh rate. At 60 Hz the motion is smooth enough for casual play, but fast-paced shooters feel a bit less crisp compared to the 144 Hz screens you find on more expensive gaming machines. If you're a competitive player who relies on ultra-smooth motion, you might feel limited. Portability is another factor that often gets lost in the hype. The Pro 16 measures 357mm wide and 22mm thick, weighing roughly 2.2 kilograms, about 4.9 pounds. It's definitely heavier than an ultra-thin Ultrabook, but it's still manageable for a backpack-friendly laptop. The extra width compared to a 15-inch chassis gives the keyboard a more comfortable spacing and the display a larger canvas without.